Now, as I said earlier, tomorrow promises to be a befitting synopsis of the widening divisions facing the country. In Parliament, the Select Committee on Electoral Laws amendments will begin receiving stakeholders' input, and barely a kilometre away, the National Super Alliance will be holding demonstrations to push for what it says are non-negotiable electoral reforms, failure to which there will be no election. Now, can there be a way out of the political stalemate with only 25 days to the election? Tonight we talk to lawyer Charles Kanjama and MPs Gladys Sholay and Peter Kaluma. Thank you so much for making time for us tonight. Talk to us. The hashtag is GamePlay2017, and you can also text us on 22422. I'll take a look very briefly at some of those proposed amendments. I'll start with those on the IEBC Act. Key issues there: Vice Chair can act as the Chair in the absence of the Chairman of IEBC. Any Commissioner can also be elected to act as Chair in absence of the Vice Chair. And of course the issue of quorum, the Commission quorum reduced to 3 from 5. On the Elections Act, the manual and electronic systems of transmission to be used, and of course it also says in case of a conflict, manual takes precedence. There's also the amendment there that we're on saying on section 39 of the Elections Act, where there's discrepancy between the electronically transmitted and manual transmitted results, the manual transmitted results shall prevail. 1E, any failure to transmit or publish the election results in electronic format shall not invalidate the results as announced and declared by the respective presiding and returning officers at the polling station and constituency tallying centre respectively. It also talks of a jail term for presiding officers and returning officers, or other presiding officers who knowingly fail or refuses to sign or complete a document shall be liable to a jail term not exceeding 5 years. It also talks about an eligible candidate for an election may withdraw from the election by notice in writing to the Commission. It also says where only one candidate remains after the withdrawal, the remaining candidates shall be declared elected forthwith as the President-elect without any election being held. Plus, of course, there are other amendments, but those are just some of the key ones. We've seen hue and cry from the opposition about these amendments, and they're now saying, and they actually walked out from talks with the IEBC last week saying these amendments should be dropped. I'll start with Charles Kanjama tonight. First, from where you stand, what do you make of these amendments?
I think what you are saying is that both Jubilee and NASA are trying to amend or change the landscape before the next elections. The focus of NASA is on changing the people who are going to run the elections, the staff of the Commission, and is also on changing some of the parties or stakeholders like Al Ghurair or the providers of the ICT technology who are involved in the process. And on the part of Jubilee, we are saying that their focus is to change some of the laws because they are not happy with the way the laws were interpreted by the Supreme Court on 20th of September when they gave the detailed decision. So I think, Hussein, what you are saying is that each of the two coalitions is, allow me to use the word, hypocritically attacking the reforms proposed by the other side on the principle that you should not change the rules of the game before the next election, but very happy to propose certain changes on their own. And it is for the Kenyan to see what needs to be done. But I think we can conclude that both coalitions have some right to revisit aspects of the last election because those elections did not work out properly. They were overturned by the court. The question is to do it with sobriety and modesty.
Okay. Is it as simple as who's right, who's wrong here?
Sorry?
Is it as simple as, is it simple to say who is right and who is wrong?
No, I don't think it's easy to say who is right and who's wrong. I personally believe they are both right in some aspects and both wrong in other aspects.
All right. Gladys, of course, you have been in IEBC before, IEC formerly. Yes. You've also been in the judiciary. It's an amazing career. And now in Parliament, you are in this select committee. Why do you find it necessary to have these amendments?
I think they are.
And you've heard what NASA has said. Unless you drop them, they're not willing to talk anymore, and they're saying they're actually unconstitutional.
I think we have to grind back this way. Remember, this is not the first time that we are making amendments to the electoral rules in response to things that happened during an election. We did this in 2007. We did this in 1997. It's happened each time. So this is not the first time that changes are being made on account of happenings around the elections. You remember the 2007 elections? We had the Kriegler report. After the Kriegler report, we made changes that now the law that now set up the IEBC, the law that the new elections law that allowed even, and we didn't even stop just at the elections. It went even up to the time of hearing of electoral disputes. That's why the laws even changed to ensure that we didn't hear. We don't only hear they're not heard over a period of 5 years like used to happen before, and now that there was a statutory limit of 6 months. So those are things that have been happening throughout the process. But now, let's look at the actual amendments, yeah? And I know that Kaluma has told me to explain to you what the amendments are about. He was my student, so I'm allowed to teach him. Yeah. But now he seems to be cleverer than the teacher. But if you remember this, they have been asking for the removal of certain members of IEBC. We are worried that there could be a vacuum and we end up not having elections. So the changes in the quorum and that ability for any commissioner to act as a chairperson is to ensure that we have continuity should anybody leave office. We also had some commissioners saying, my life is in danger, I might leave. Suppose they walk away. We don't want a situation where we end up not having any election. And I want to
just to stop you there. Please have, sorry to to interrupt you, but I want Kaluma to actually respond specifically on that amendment, because you have a problem with these amendments. That amendment that Gladys Shelley is talking about, because the investigations now by the DPP. We never know how those investigations could go, whether all the commissioners will be in office by the time of this repeat election, and the demonstrations and how they could go. So she's saying that those amendments on the IEBC Act are specifically to take care of that in case there's a vacuum, in case the chair leaves before the repeat election.
You have all reasons to fear, what is coming from that statement. I mean, we have an elections, Hussein, coming on, do we say now 26th?
26th, yeah.
And the Jubilee side is anticipating absence of the chair. And when you are anticipating absence of the chair, when others are also telling you they have a problem with their security and everything, when just before these elections, a very crucial staff in IEBC disappeared in circumstances being investigated, really you have cause for alarm. Let me in law say it this way, Mwalimu. The architecture of elections in terms of the leadership of IEBC is in the Constitution. And when you look at the Constitution, most of the provisions relating to election of the President, I want you to take time and look at Article, particularly 138.10. The Commission 1 is defined in the Constitution from Article 248, 250 as the chair and the members. Why is that distinction being made? The chair and the members. When you go to 138 dealing with elections of the President, the chair has been institutionalized and ring-fenced, separate from the members of the commission, so that you get other provisions telling you the commission shall do this, the commission shall do this. But when it comes to declaration of who is to be declared the President, you are now told it is not the commission. It is the chair of IEBC, whose appointment is dealt with in Article 250, sub-Article 2. I mean, you cannot, seek to make it open to anybody to operate as a chair without interrogating Mwalimu the reason as to why the chair was being made an office and an institution for particular purposes, separate from all the members. So these are those, provocative amendments that I think are making a situation which is already bad worse.
Okay, I think first let's talk about the vacuum. This is not the only law that anticipates that the absence of a chair or a person. If you look at even the Constitution, it clearly says in the absence of the President, there is a Deputy President. In the absence of both the Deputy President and the President, it is the Speaker that shall act before we have the elections in 60 days. So all our laws always anticipate to ensure that there is continuity.
Except this one. And what I'm asking is...
And I think it was an omission by Parliament.
No, this one is in the Constitution. The commission has to tally and verify the tally of results. But in terms of declaration, you are being told the chair shall, not the commission. The question you should be asking is the thinking of the constitution makers. No, the thinking of the constitution makers is who and why is the chair being separated from the general body of the commissions. And I'm telling you, there are very good reasons for that. That is why, even at the level of, if you remember the Chief Justice, you will be told the Chief Justice will swear. In the absence, it is the Deputy Chief Justice. And if you look at the appointment requirements for the Chief Justice and Deputy, they are the same.
And that is why
not the member of the Commission and the Chair. What I'm saying, Hussein, is that either way,
and
we need to look at this matter. We need to look at this matter as lawyers and question why the people of Kenya made it the obligation of the Chair, not the Commission, to do particular things.
Okay, let me get.
It would be unconstrained. Thank you for coming to me. The heat is already growing. What I would say is this, that we need to ask ourselves what would happen if the Chair either resigned from office before 26th of October or after the elections took place declined to declare results. What would be the effect of that? I have had many reporters asking me over the last 1 month questions around, would this cause a constitutional crisis? Would this other thing cause a constitutional crisis? And the reality is that Kenyans are concerned about the possibility of a constitutional crisis. I think we need to ask that question not only in regard to IEBC, but in regard to all the key constitutional organs that play an important role in our governance mechanism. Hussein, what happened last year when the Chief Justice and the Deputy Chief Justice were both out of office at the same time, the Supreme Court went below quorum of 5 members, and the Judicial Service Act also did not provide for somebody to act as Chief Justice after the Deputy and the Chief Justice were absent at the same time. So we went through a period where we were reassuring Kenyans that there is no crisis. The Chief Registrar will deal with administrative matters, the heads of each court will deal with their issues, but deep down we understood that there was a lacuna that needed to be resolved. The Judicial Service Act was amended. That amendment came into force early this year to now provide that if both the Chief Justice and the Deputy are absent, the senior-most judge of the Supreme Court will act as Chief Justice for a limited period before the Chief Justice is appointed. So going beyond the partisan situation we are in, I think as a constitutional principle, it is generally good to foresee what will happen in critical constitutional moments when you have an important office holder who is missing. If it was the president who is missing, the deputy president would act. What happens if the Chief Justice is missing and the president needs to be sworn in? What happens if the chair of IEBC is missing and results need to be declared? So I think that is the question that needs to be resolved.
Hussein, this is not something coming by way of legislation. The people of Kenya had a chance to question what would happen if the chair is not there. And they said in the Constitution at Article 138, Sub-Article 10, that for purposes of declaring the President of Kenya, it shall be the chairman. Don't be innovative around law thinking of like you.
I think we're saying...
And to me, by the way I fear, this sounds to me ominous. Why should we contemplate the absence of a chair after an election when we have a fresh election coming in a month's time?
You have to... anything. I mean,
why didn't you contemplate it before? You know, when I see this and the struggles Chebukati has in IEBC, even recommending let so and so step aside, they are reversed, you see there is a problem. And remember, Hussein, it is not just the chair.
But Kaluma, I think
let me clarify for you. You know, these amendments, if you look at them keenly, Hussein, particularly on IEBC, 2 members of IEBC can now transact the business of IEBC. I don't know whether
3.
No, 3 is quorum.
3 is quorum, yeah.
But decision making, the majority of those...
The majority will be 2 of those.
So 2 can make a decision.
Let her respond.
Let her respond, because I think you're not making this clear to people. One, it is permitted when we have the Constitution. The law enables the Constitution. That is why we have acts of Parliament.
No, the Constitution enables the law.
Yes, but then explains it further. Now let's put it in another way. When he says what has caused us to worry about the absence of the chair, what there are demonstrations every 2 days a week saying that the commissioners must go, members of the commission must go. You are the ones causing people to worry about the absence of the members of the commission because of the demonstrations. But aren't the demonstrations
then I'm beginning to think that
But why the demonstration?
Jubilee has difficulty with some members of the commission, and they want to run the commission absent those members.
No.
And this
is
the capture of the commission, I think they're worried about.
NASA wants to run
but
the elections without any commissioners.
Hussein, that is not where we are.
You have demanded
we
for
have
the removal
singled
of
the two commissioners for good reasons.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. But also, when you single out two commissioners, the others can be dejected and leave. They can walk away. Who likes to have demonstrations outside their office every single day? Chances of them quitting.
Okay, so let me just put the question to you very well. We can keep going on and on about this amount of interpretation from both sides. But Kaluma, so what if, because the investigation is going on, you want two commissioners out, you want other officials out, including Shiloba. What if you get your way and these two commissioners are out, and investigations reveal that 3 other commissioners need to be out, or the chairman has to be out?
The quorum for all constitutional commissions is 5 members. So the commission will still proceed.
No, it says 2 to 9.
The commission will still proceed. And let us have not have this situation where we are asking political questions on a legal matter. To me, if you engaged in illegalities, you violated the constitution. You should take the moral responsibility to go before NASA comes for you.
I think Kaluma said it.
That is what I'm talking about.
So my question again, Kaluma.
Yes.
NASA has called for specific people to be out.
Yes.
And generally investigations, and if you want things changed before the elections are done, IEBC reform. So what if it touches on the chair and the chair has to leave before the election?
They are hoping that people leave. There is a vacuum so we don't have an election.
If the chair leaves, then I see it will be dealt with at that level. And that is the reason I will tell you, Hussein, and I've said it here times without number, that is the single reason as to why you've noted in our clamor for removal of officials, even though the chair, the head of IEBC with the bungling of the elections ought to have been a target, we are saying leave him aside for now. Because once you do away with the chair, and you said let us be honest about this, then there can be no election because there will be nobody to declare the presidential results. And that's why we were saying, anything touching on the chair, please leave it aside for now.
So Gladys, when you do these amendments, from what you're saying, unless I'm wrong, you can correct me.
Take care of the vacuum.
It should take care of an anticipated.
Yes.
Why would you anticipate it?
Because we have a situation where the IEBC, the demonstrations every day, the opposition, NASA has clearly said that they can't go to the elections with the IEBC currently constituted. They don't want so-and-so. They don't want this done. They don't want this company. They are, even when people get involved...
We have left the chair.
Yes, you've left the chair, yes.
Because it's the national returning officer for the presidential vote.
No, but you must understand this, Kaluma. When you are making attacks daily on an institution, what it does to their morale within that commission, the chances
but there was a problem in that commission. That commission was redacted by the Supreme Court.
We cannot turn a blind eye.
But you cannot cure it by pulling everyone down.
This is the first election in Africa to be nullified. Really, you must look at the decision and question, why did we reach here?
Yes, and exactly
by the way, the changes we are proposing here are largely administrative, not
being unfair.
Let's speak.
You must realize we have acknowledged that there were challenges in the current elections, and we have said there were challenges that were raised by the Supreme Court. All these amendments are intended to cure those problems so that we don't go back to the same situation again in this. And let's look at one of the amendments. We had a big problem where people voted, they put their ballots in a ballot box, and the ballot papers were counted and announced there at the polling station.
We are dealing with the next
No, but I want to just explain to him.
Because let's go there. Let's go to the next one. Let's just go to the next one. But before that,
it's going to link with that.
Before that, Gladys, I was asking you a question. I asked you why you would anticipate, because IEBC has said very clearly they are waiting for these investigations. Jubilee has said let investigations take place. Why would you anticipate?
NASA is not going for the chair. The Supreme Court never went for the chair.
No, there are two. We said there are two things. One, the demonstrations. Two, the fact that there is demands for removal of certain people in office. That's what's making us anticipate that there can be a vacuum. And remember, what we do not want to happen. We cannot have a situation where on the 26th we don't have an election. So I know NASA's strategy is to ensure that they paralyze the commission. It can't operate so that we don't have elections on the 26th.
Okay, we can't obviously
not talk politics.
It's okay. We can't obviously look at all of them.
Yes.
You can see the heat in studio already. Let's take a look at another amendment here. This is on section 39, where we have now 1D talking about first you're saying there should be now both manual and electronic transmission.
Yes.
And you're saying where there's a discrepancy between the electronically transmitted and manual transmitted results, the manual transmitted results shall prevail. I'll come to that shortly, but first let's tackle this 1E. Any failure to transmit or publish the election results in an electronic format shall not invalidate the result as announced and declared by the respective presiding and returning officers at the polling station and constituency tallying center respectively. Kanjama, what does this mean to you?
What it means to me, Hussein, is this. Results transmission is done in several ways. There has been a bit of ambiguity as a result of the decision of the Court of Appeal in Maina Kiai versus IEBC, and then the interpretation of the Supreme Court in Raila versus IEBC as to what are the final results and how are they transmitted. What Maina Kiai said is that the polling station results, once they are declared, they are final. And that those results, once they are collated, verified and tallied at the constituency, are final. And that the national returning officer has to collate those final results. He cannot alter them. What the Supreme Court has said is that if you do not properly transmit those results, if they cannot be verified, then they will be invalidated. So there is an ambiguity there, in my view, as to whether the results are final once they are declared, if they are not properly transmitted. Electronically transmitted.
That is what it means.
Yeah. My feeling, Hussein, is this, that there will be many reasons why results will either not be transmitted electronically, or if transmitted, may vary from the manual results. Some of them may be cases of negligence. Some of them may be criminal cases of deliberate alteration of results, and some of them may be mistakes of transcription and addition and so on. So then the question arises, what is to be done in that particular case? You saw places where presiding officers failed to record the number of rejected votes, where there was a change of the votes from one candidate to the other. This amendment proposes a universal rule where the manual results will always prevail over the electronic. I personally don't think it's been worded appropriately, because there are situations where it is the manual results that will have a mistake and not the electronic results that have been transmitted. But I do think there needs to be a statutory mechanism to determine which results carry the day. There is discrepancy.
From these amendments, you're actually saying there's a manual results that will carry the day, isn't it?
Yes.
In case there's a problem.
Yes, and I agree totally with Kandama the way he's explained it. The only thing that I would add on what he has said is that if you look at what has been happening at the polling station, when the results are put onto the form 34As and 34Bs, when they are put there, remember that it's in carbon copy, and each of the agents of the candidates get a copy. So what happens is, and they all sign against it. So each of them will say, we have confirmed and this is the correct one. What happens is, that for me is actually the source document of the electronically transmitted results. Because when you key in and transmit, no other agent there has control of when it goes. And
transmitting the form itself electronically.
Yes, what is happening in this case is the text would be inserted, and it would be put the form, an image of the form would be taken and transmitted. But in some places, only the text got to the National Tallying Center, and not the image, because they couldn't get the right coverage for it to get there. Remember, they are the ones who complained, and let's put it this way. The results were electronically transmitted. At the time of the Maina Kiai case, you wanted a situation where when that result is electronically transmitted, it cannot be altered, even if there's a discrepancy between that and the hard copy that was announced at the polling station. You got your way on that one. You then said that the system was hacked, isn't it? That the system was hacked and results changed. That is the allegation. Now we are telling you, we will make sure that the hard copy is the one that prevails. That way you don't have to worry about hacking anymore. In fact, you should be happy. In fact, that particular amendment is answering to the...
Before Kaluma, let me say something. It is possible. it's possible that the form that is originally filled at the polling station can be put aside, another one manufactured with different results.
That is actually why we had to come up with an electronic system. Because of the games that were being played in between.
It's complementary.
Yes.
But manual takes precedence.
Yes. Let me finish verifying the result.
Let me finish the explanation. It is possible to have the original manual form signed by the agents, put aside, a new one manufactured and generated, signed by either fictitious people or not signed at all. And so that amendment will have to take into account the fact that even the manual form can be altered. Both the manual and the electronic.
No, but Kajama, if you have been to a polling station, you will realize that when you sign it, that is why you have an agent at the polling station, so that your agent ensures that what is on his form is the one that was announced at the polling station, so that I can bring it to my candidate and say this is what I confirmed was announced. If there is a discrepancy, because I would have expected NASA to be able to say this is the form that was brought to us by our agent, but this is what you're announcing, there is a discrepancy. That is where the verification begins.
Hussein, you now know what we are talking about. You know, Jubilee can never win a free and fair election. Let me tell you the fact. And there is a background to electronic transmission, and you've alluded to it. I'm happy for that. I was an agent of Professor Saitoti in 1997 when campaigns were going on here. And I can tell you, Gladys, for the plane to move from Bulbul to Nairobi, the chopper that was carrying the ballot materials, it took all 4 hours. On air here, the forms were being changed and other results are being, altered. That is why we came to the situation we came in the case that we had the other time. And it was from the Kriegler, recommendation, if you remember. We must get a way of inculcating or incorporating technology into, these things. Because the results will be announced at the polling station. They will be scanned. Remember, the people are at the polling station. Agents invariably there. The leaders being elected at that level are there. It is scanned in their presence. The law that is there, section 39(1)(c) will tell you that you then scan it in front of these people, you key in the results on that form manually, and you transmit both. IEBC ought to be thinking about complementary. And if you look at the Maina Kiai decision, they were saying that complementary mechanism can only be where technology has completely failed. If you are not lying against, for the sake of it. And remember, there were satellite phones, incorporated by this IEBC as a complementary mechanism, and it works. The question that Jubilee is dealing with is how can we alter results when they move from Homa Bay, they are coming to Nairobi. How do we alter them somewhere in the middle of the way and secure that they are the results? And let me tell you, what happened in the Supreme Court, I was in court. Kanjama, you applied to be joined as because you are denied a chance.
The amendment.
That is what I'm talking about. The situation we had to say is that people voted, results were counted, and those forms were given to our agents. If you saw the submissions we gave through Otiedamolo. Now, when you come to Nairobi, the results which are being deposited in court are different from the results on the public portal, and they are different from the results at the polling station. How does Jubilee come with an amendment saying that the security that you can only get through electronic transmission is now to be put aside? The beauty of technology is that when you key in that result, if it is deleted, it will show. This is what we are talking about. When a human being on the way to delivering the results to Bomas changes these papers,
so you would want it left as is.
It should be as is, and it should remain so. Remember, this thing was negotiated deeply. That one should not be interfered with. And it is the best confirmation you have, Hussein, to the fact that Jubilee is minded to rig.
That's actually, she was asking your question.
No, I think if you look at the amendments clearly, No one is saying that we're going to do away with the electronic system. What we are saying is, should there be a discrepancy? Because remember,
we are reverting to manual.
No, we're not reverting to
No, but the amendment says, I mean, what she says is clear. The amendment says if there's a discrepancy, it is manual that will take precedence.
Correct. So we are reverting to manual, essentially. That's what you're being told here.
No. You must remember this. And I think that is something else that's not being made accurate to people. Remember, there were 11,000 polling stations that could not transmit anyway. Yeah. So it was necessary that you fall back on them. Eventually you fall back on the manual system. And also, let me ask you,
those polling stations in Homa Bay.
So,
but where in Homa Bay is this we lack technology? Where in Kisi? I mean, this is mischief.
Okay, let's show
what are you losing from ensuring that both systems do exist and run together, are complementary, and that will be the argument at that time. We'll be saying this is what has come on the manual form. Is there a discrepancy which was electronically transmitted? Those places can be isolated. We are trying to make sure the system just ensures that we don't have a situation where your vote does not count because someone made an error in the form or filled in the wrong result or failed to put a rubber stamp.
Can I say something? Between the result scanned and transmitted electronically in the presence of people at the polling station, and the result being carried on paper by a presiding officer or a returning officer to Nairobi, which one should be credible?
No, what he's forgetting, it's not only the returning officer, it's not only the presiding officer transporting. Remember, each of your agents have the same copy. Each of their agents have the same copy signed by the same returning officer.
Let me just say one word. There are 290 constituencies, and the constituency returning officer, what happened in the past elections is they were getting the polling station result forms, the 34As. That's what they were using to collate and prepare the 34Bs. They were actually using the manual system. But my view is that there will be times when the manual system gives you greater accuracy, and there will be times when the electronic system gives you greater accuracy. And it would be useful if the legislators thought about having some discretion with some reasonable means of determining what is the accurate result given to the returning officer. Because if you don't give the returning officer the discretion, he may know that this manual result is erroneous. Actually, the electronic one is the one that's accurate, or vice versa. But because the law has purported to tie the hands of the returning officer, you end up with a problem. And precisely that was the issue that actually was raised by IEBC.
At the minority.
The officer is not tied.
Allow me to clarify this issue. These are proposed amendments, isn't it? So there's still going to be public participation the whole of this week for people to bring their views.
Do you think much is going to change from...
is refusing to come to Parliament. You know, they don't come to Parliament, so they don't get a chance to argue. So I want you to come there that day. I'm looking forward to you coming there.
I cannot engage in Parliament on this nonsense. You know...
No, but
let me tell you.
But let's clarify that it's proposed amendment.
Let me tell you.
If you want some things made, changes made...
Let me tell you.
The way you'd be serving your people is to ensure that you actually come and make changes to this.
But after the Jubilee leadership has spoken about this, do you expect any changes with the numbers you have in Parliament?
No.
Even if they bring their input, I mean...
No, but you know, you cannot just give up or refuse to participate. Remember, the people of Homa Bay County have elected you to come there and give those views. Even if they are not accepted, they will remember that you gave the views,
we can't look at all the amendments.
And you still represented them.
We have come from so far as a country to go back on some of these things. I think we need to be honest. This is not something I'll waste, time debating with anybody. I think we are being, over-provoked.
Okay, so let me
withdraw this bill.
But
it is bad for our democracy.
That's why you should come during the public participation hearings and say exactly that.
They have said. They've actually said.
No, you do not make law on the street or in public rallies. You come to the committee, give your representations at that time. They shall be captured. Everybody will be watching. That is the correct way to make law. And you don't make law in rallies or by absconding and boycotting and sitting out in the street. You make law by participating in Parliament. That is why you're paid to be a legislator. You're supposed to be in the House giving the views.
There was a process going on. There was a process last week where IEBC was sitting with both Jubilee and NASA regarding the fresh elections. And NASA actually walked out based on these laws. And they have actually said they're not going to engage further until these laws are dropped. You're saying it won't happen, the process has to...
No, I mean, what we are saying is that as a legislator, your people have elected you to represent them. You must represent their views. They did not elect